welcome to this talk show. Good evening, our dear viewers. It's a pleasure to be with you once again as we continue deliberating on the matter of analyzing the economic policies. And the economic policies' major concern is to look at how we can improve the economic lives of the people and basically the progress of the economic transformation that we have always been talking about. Tonight, it's a pleasure to be with you, Dr. Fred Muhumuza. Please kindly greet the viewers.
Thank you. Good evening, our viewers. It's a pleasure to be on Smart TV and with smart people out there who are watching us.
Thank you. Dr. Fred Muhumuza is the Director, Economics, Department of Economics, right?
Economics Forum
Yeah.
at Makerere University
At Makerere University Business School. We appreciate for the good work you are doing, and basically as you nurture our young generation to fit into the economic dimensions, which I believe it is the day-to-day concern, because all of us will want to be better in our economic livelihoods. Our topical discussion is food security and fundamental socio-economic transformation. We'd like to look at the realistic point of view, especially referring to Uganda. And very, very soon, some few minutes to come, we'll be joined by Mr. James Tweyo, that is a representative of workers on the NRM Central Executive Committee, and also the supervisor of RDC, the responsibility he holds in the President's office. We will be joining us, and we are interested to know exactly in this discussion how and also whether the government is doing what's supposed to do and the citizens to advance this discourse, the fundamental socio-economic transformation. In short preamble, I would like to draw the attention of the viewers outside there, the listeners, to get interested in the current challenges that we continue to evaluate and look at how we can overcome them. We don't lament all on a position you are at a place of getting worried, but also being able to know that we need to undertake a number of initiatives that can advance us to move forward, especially in the economic progress and achievements that we need as a country. Some of the sub-regions, our dear guest, as we go forward, we understand it shouldn't be Uganda having the challenge of hunger killing some people, especially in the Karamoja sub-region. We have talked about this before, but we still believe we need to go into the in-depth of this. 2019, there was also elements of food insecurity, which drew us to attention by the government in some of the areas, including in the western region of Uganda, Isingiro. And also because of some natural calamities, we've had part of the sub-regions being hit by floods, and as a result also leading to food insecurity, especially in the western region of Uganda. Bududa is one of the area, and also part of, we refer to the western region, when there was a challenge with in the Gwenzori sub-region, especially Kasese, also hit by floods. All there are many attributes possible to food insecurity, but our advocacy this evening is for food security, much as we've had instances that are too much painful for all of us as a country of food insecurity. Over 250 people dying as a result of famine is not something that we just, wish away and we say it's as if it's well. It's not well. And I know the government have tried to intervene, and some NGOs and some, good well-wishers. So we'll be going through this discussion and finally maybe look at what is the cause of this, as it has happened before. Uganda, that's supposed to be the food basket of Africa, in the current economic crisis we are going through, where food should be the first necessity that should at least be an assurance of everyone that we are able to go home. You are able to go home and your family is well fed, and maybe the issue of income becomes the next course of action. It's a pleasure to receive you, sir, and with the experience you have and maybe a number of economic analytical point of views that will address this matter to teach and inform the public and our fellow countrymen and women how we can be better in this trend of events.
Yes, thank you.
It's a pleasure to have you, sir.
Thank you. It is indeed a pleasure, and I like the sub-theme we are having here, which is analysis of economic policies. We may look at it as food shortage. We may look at it as hunger. Is it food security? But it all reflects what are policies that we are having. Were they well formulated? Did they seek to address the real fundamental issues? And have they been well implemented? What else is missing? Why should Uganda find itself with a food shortage? And yet we have been training ourselves and branding ourselves as the food basket. You hear these statements: Africa can be the food basket of the world. Uganda can be the food basket of the region. And sometimes people, through humor, say don't ask for anything, you might actually get it. So if we have been seeking to be the food basket of the region, we now are.
Yes, sir.
And unfortunately, there is no food in the basket.
Sorry.
So what have you been calling yourself? The food basket of the region, and you are not that food basket. We need to appreciate that there are over 8 million households in Uganda. It could be 8.5, it could even be 9, or possibly even more than 9 households in Uganda. Now, these households are looking for food to eat as a fundamental thing. Even when you look through the Bureau of Statistics ranking of what takes the bulk of a household's income, you find that 45 to 47% of the household income goes into food. Meaning food is highly prioritized. The other part you find about 20%, and depending on where people are, goes into housing for those who are in the urban area. So food and housing become very core. People will commit up to 60% of their income to food and housing. Now, the other two that eat into that is education and health. These are investments for the future, but every household, because is looking forward to a better future, will invest there. But let's not run away from what policies therefore we have to make sure our households are able to sustainably and affordably meet these basic aspects of life. Food being very core, because without food, all the others collapse. And that's why it takes the lion's share. And we need to be saying, when we look at the 8 to 9 million households in Uganda, they are not the only ones that eat from here. This is the food basket of the region, as we have always prayed it to be, and it has become. Whenever you go down in the countryside, you find deep in trading centers huge trucks parked. When you take interest to ask around, they'll tell you some of those trucks have come from the DRC, some have come from Rwanda, some have come from South Sudan, and some are from Kenya, depending on the product you're talking about, depending on the region you are in. So we need to appreciate that our economic policies, our social policies, our cultural policies have an impact to deliver, have an influence on the whole region. And therefore we should not be just targeting the Ugandan. The Ugandan will remain hungry if you haven't provided food for the region, because the region trades here freely. That's why you can find a truck deep in the middle of nowhere and you think it is headed for Kisenyi in Kampala, or it's going to go to a market in Gulu, but this truck is actually going to South Sudan. This truck is going to Kenya and is picking food directly from the villages. That's the integration we asked for under the East African community, and it has come. And people are freely trading, but now we have nothing to sell to these people and sustain ours to eat. These are economic policies. What have we had? We have had the plan for modernization of agriculture 22 years ago, 2000. We've had a number of other agricultural projects. And I hear people talk about Ntandikwa, then they will talk about Prosperity for All, then will talk. These made a contribution in their time, but it hasn't been sustained, or it wasn't sufficient to turn around and transform the communities, to put them on a sustainable path of food production. But also there have been many other interventions of government. Community Access Infrastructure Project, what they call CAIP, has been out there building silos. And this one now we have a problem. That your policy is to target on building storage facilities. Your policy is targeting on processing facilities, agro-industrialization, I hear value addition. And I'm like, but wait a minute, before you add value, have people had enough of food? Because you can only add value after that household which produces the maize has had its share. The community around it, which buy from it, have also had their share. And now, as we've said, the neighbors have also had their share. And majority of these want fresh food. They are not looking for processed milk. They want milk as it is. They are not looking for processed tomatoes. They want the tomatoes as they are. Processed onions, they want them as they are. So you will end up with a factory at the end of the day, which is at the bottom of the chain. That if there is any shortfall in production, the factory is going to suffer. Because nobody is going to wait for the milk to come out of the factory. We will buy it the way it is. In jerrycans, in basins, in buckets, we want milk. In bottles, we want milk. So you find there is a lot of milk being produced, but also a lot of milk being consumed. And that's why we have an issue to say, for better planning, can we have community statistics? Because this will help you to understand how much food is being produced, how much is being sold within the local area, and therefore how much is available to go into either processing, the factories, and elsewhere.
I would like to appreciate your first submission, and as you were giving us the trend of exactly what looks to be the situation, indeed analyzing the state of these, transformational programs and projects, there seems to be a mismatch. The statement of these, the title of programs,
yes,
vis-a-vis the impact.
The impact, yes,
seems to be questionable. Yep. What do you observe? Because I know you've had, this is not just a mere statement. We've done research, and there seems to be indeed a reason why one can say what is being stated. PMA, you can hear that statement alone. Plan for modernization of agriculture.
Yes.
And for 22 years. That means that we are supposed as a country to be in real modernization of agriculture. I will just go bit by bit and look what might have gone wrong, because by PMO itself, I do believe with all my heart, suppose it was implemented in its really full content,
yes,
would be very far. Would be very far. There are countries all over the world, elsewhere, which have done the best.
Yes.
What is your take on that, sir?
I think the question of one is the design, like plan for modernization of agriculture was a very good design. Because for the first time we had a plan, much as it was talking about agriculture, it had all the other components that do support agriculture. The roads, the water, the marketing systems, the advisory services, but the implementation failed. Now, you want to ask, why does Uganda always fail to do proper implementation of its policies? And then it also prides itself in that, because you'll find the government officials saying Uganda has good policies, but we don't implement. Some people are even now thinking maybe we need to write a manual or a policy on implementation of policy. I'm like, no, you don't need a policy to implement policies. Policies are supposed to be implemented by institutions. You need to reform the institutions, because quite often you miss it at that point when the institution that is central to a program does not appreciate its role in that program. You talk about the green revolution in Asia, and Asians would really be starving today because they are in billions. When we're here, we are just talking of millions. What did they do? They said we need higher yielding varieties. What do you do to do those? You don't buy tractors, not yet. Go and do research, agricultural research. So if I look at what are we doing with our agricultural research in the National Agricultural Research Organization, what funding are we giving them? Because they are central to any of these problems. You're not going to increase the land size of poor people. On average, we all have 2.5 hectares. That is not going to increase. But if a hectare or an acre is giving this person 1 ton, how do I make sure I give him a planting material that will make that acre produce 5 tons? It's as if you have given him an extra 5 acres. But remember, now he's using the same energy. But you have only changed what he's growing. Now, when you look at most of our programs, even up to today, the design is either too specific and narrow focused, it doesn't look at the extra, what else needs to be happening, or we never even implement. What's the government budget to the National Agricultural Research Organization? Very small. The bulk of it is funded by development partners. Yet we need to develop varieties that speak to our local context. A development partner or any other funder may make you part of their global research program. They are doing a research program for sorghum in Africa. Africa is so large. There are people in Chad, there are people in... So it's a sorghum program for Africa. It's not speaking to the soils in Soroti, it's not speaking to the soils in Katakwi, or the soils in Busoga, or the soils in Impigi. It may not be speaking to those soils, but the research is there. So we have scientists, but you want to start from there and say, okay, can I solve the research component so that people have the right seed to plant that responds to the diseases in this country, to the pests in this country, to the water shortage in this country. Some people say let's irrigate, but they forget that there are drought tolerant varieties. For people who know rain only comes for a month and that's it for a whole year, they have evolved drought tolerant varieties, and Naro can give us those. So I think we've not addressed all the components, the nodes of the chain, and then we end up with siloism, each institution trying to think it is the domain and then does not appreciate the concept of what you are developing.
Doctor, you brought in the concern of policy implementation, and it seems to be, in my observation, as I pose this comment or question to you, that the design, the policy formulation itself tends to be determined by the elite theory of where those who formulate these policies, they seem not to consult what exactly can make progressive implementation. That progressive implementation, I mean this way, which is participatory. Because the moment any program can be very good, any policy can be very good, but the moment it doesn't involve those who are the beneficiaries, it tends always to widen a gap and to create a bridge, quite long bridge. So that is one of a commentary, a question I would like to pose to you, and it seems to have delayed us to reach to our Canaan in terms of socio-economic transformation.
Which is true.
Number two, also there is an issue which I would like you to enlighten to the viewers in regard to the deliberate intention of the NRM government, especially for programs to be owned by the citizen through decentralization. But yet it seems to be decentralization, according to a number of commentaries I've received from different authors. Decentralization seems to have been undermined, not the way it would have worked, undermined by the same government. That's an opinion by people. Because decentralization would have been to empower the citizens, and they own their programs and then they implement them. But seems to have been undermined. Why do I say so? After the suspension of the NADS program, Operation Wealth Creation, and currently the parish model, the design of these programs are not determined by the local governments through their units to determine on how they want to run programs. That's the undermining I am talking about. And also the funding is also minimal. You were talking about the funding. That's another challenge. I don't know to you what an analytical point of view that would like either to see how we can harmonize the two, because there is the late Professor Sibambi wrote a book and he said we need to strengthen, he was the Prime Minister of this country, to strengthen decentralization approaches. What is your take on that?
I think that is a true and correct analysis of the issues. No matter how tall you are, your stability with that height is determined by your firmness of the feet on the ground. If your feet are on slippery ground, you're going to slide and fall. And depending on how high you want to go, that also determines on what ground you want to be firm on. So a person who is 6 feet would have a long foot. A person who is 4 feet would have a shorter foot. Meaning if we really want to go up and transform the country, we've got to develop and strengthen right where the people live, right where the rubber touches the ground. It's at the decentralization level that people get a feel of government for most of these government agencies. If decentralization doesn't work, there is no forest officer, there is no extension staff, there is no medical worker, there is no midwife. people will tell you government is missing. It doesn't matter how big parliament is and its budget. They all voted and that person left. But the real feeling of the people is that decentralization. And as you've said, we lost it maybe in 2 or 3 ways. One was we decentralized activities but not the resource. And I heard people saying the local governments are still weak. But there was no deliberate effort to build their strength, to say, okay, they're still weak, we will hold on to some of these resources for 3 years as we do X, Y, and Z to strengthen them. Now, this is 30 years of decentralization. You still hear issues of the local governments are still weak. So what have you been doing? You're using that excuse wrongly because we're supposed to build their capacity. But because you want to hold on to their resources. Even as you say, PDM money, the PDM money, especially for financial inclusion, was supposed to be local government money. Because who is responsible is the parish chief, who is an employee of the cow. Now you want the parish chief to sign on a form, and he's reporting to who? Because the cow has not received that money. So the cow will have a problem. Protecting and disciplining his staff when they are signing on money is where is a third party.
The money and the money came from.
So we are saying already you can see, you want to keep money at the center. Why didn't you give this money? We said it is per parish, 100 million. So calculate the number of parishes in each local government and send that money
to the sub-county.
To the sub-county
exactly.
And to the cow. Now, begin to give them instructions. But when they have their money.
Yes, sir.
So you have that challenge. That was number one. Two, decentralization became politics. Because we pegged it, constituency, every constituency must have an MP. Every district must have a woman MP. Must have, and then we began multiplying them and derailed the focus from service delivery to politics.
Thank you so much, dear viewers. These are realities from the technical point of view, academic, even in the context that is not intending either to do any criticism, but to face the realities, whether you want it or not. And we would like to go along the way with you over there. The policy makers all over the country, we are in this discussion using this as the fifth column of the government, and to ensure that you adopt some of the positive recommendation and items that we are looking at. See you in the next session as we go for the short break. Please don't miss. Stay tuned on Smart 24 TV.
Smart 24, driving business. Vimba ne MTN Kabode Super esimu ya sereza nga bw'okisasulira mpola mpola kuba amasimu kyusa zi status za WhatsApp laba mu video ku YouTube oba kozesa Google okumanya buli ekiri wansi w'enjuba ku GB 2 ze tukuweza buli mwezi okumala emyezi 7 sasulako emitwalo 99 zokka ezisigadde osasule mpola mpola kati okola ki leero genda ku dduuka lya MTN erikuli okumpi weefunire MTN Kabode Super mangu.
Music is fuel that fires up our souls. Today, African music has a dominant place on the world map. This massive music movement creating waves across the globe.
I have seen the evolution and the growth of this industry.
But every movement starts with a story.